what the heck happened? How did they get you to come to LA and go on this show? I guess that's a good place to start.
Yeah, so it kind of started with Sarah and Ashley. As we'll see at the beginning of the video, these are two women that I know personally. They connected through Instagram many months ago. I don't know if they found me through, I think they found me through the carnivore diet. They may have known about the carnivore diet before they found me. But we got to be friends through Instagram and talked about stuff and talked about how to do a carnivore diet. And they became pretty popular on Instagram, sharing pictures and stories of their diet. And a lot of the food that they were eating for a while was raw. I had a raw phase this summer. I actually really enjoy cooked meat now.
Yeah.
But I think that people were kind of interested in the fact that the majority of the meat they were eating was raw. So this news outlet in the UK named the Daily Mail, which apparently is a virtual tablet.
Yeah.
Like a virtual tabloid.
Yeah.
Picked up their story and wanted to paint them as two crazy women who claimed to heal their autoimmune disease by eating raw meat, right? It's kind of a sensational story. And when I saw it, I was like, great, more press for the carnivore diet. Of course, most of the people who commented on that Daily Mail article were saying they're crazy. These are kooky women.
Yeah.
Somehow the doctors got a hold of that. They saw the press and they contacted Ashley and Sarah. And I think that Ashley and Sarah, who are at strong.sisters on Instagram, were savvy and realized that the doctors were going to try to make them look bad, just like the Daily Mail had. That the doctors is basically a show that wants to paint all the doctors who are on the show as valiant physicians defending patients, defending the American public.
Yeah, science, defending science and the science.
Defending science, exactly, and wants to expose charlatans. I think we should be critical and we should be aware of what's going on, and we should not accept things without consideration of them. But they're trying to expose people and make them look bad. So I think Sarah and Ashley were rightly aware that the doctors were going to try to make them look bad. Yeah. Doctors were going to try to say to them, you're doing a crazy diet, that you shouldn't do that. We are physicians, we are protecting the American public. And Ashley and Sarah said, no, we're not coming on unless Paul comes on with us. We want a doctor on there. And they and I had been talking about how to do a carnivore diet, right? So that was how it got started. So I got connected with the producers and they heard my story. And I can imagine them saying to themselves, this is even better. We're going to get this doctor and make him look bad. So they bring me on.
Well, they didn't they have these two twin girls who have an autoimmune condition. So it's like, they can't really bully them, kind of like all the Me Too stuff that's going on and all this, the media stuff. You can't bully the women. So let's get a toxic masculinity male in here and let's castrate this dude in front of everybody.
That's exactly what the plan was. And I realized that in retrospect. And the more I watched the video, the more I'm aware that that was what was actually happening. So before we dig into the video, I want to tell everybody what happened after the recording, because it's almost the best part. And it's pretty hilarious because I just am afraid that people may not hear it, So I want to put the cherry on top. This is why you always eat dessert first. Or in the case of a carnivore diet, it's why you always eat liver first, whatever. So after this podcast, after this interview goes down on the doctors, I have, I walk out of the stage and, we go upstairs to the dressing rooms and Melina Jampolis is there. And she's the MD who is sitting next to me during this video, who's an internist. And I shake her hand and I say, hey, why don't you come on my podcast? Because I'd like to talk about some of this stuff more. And she goes, no, I don't think so. What, so I can get railroaded? And I said, you mean like I just got railroaded on the show? And she says, you deserved it. You deserved it. I'm quoting. My friend Dylan was there with me. There were witnesses. She said, you deserved it. And I said, what do you mean? Why did I deserve it? And she said, I have seen guys like you, young, attractive men, get attention and then they hurt people. And I said, oh, so you're projecting onto me. You're projecting. And then she lost her shit. She lost her stuff and security got called and they separated us.
In the
dressing room.
The lady that got pulled up on the screen right here, right? The woman that is...
That's Melina Jampolis. Yes, that's her. Okay. And as you'll see in this video, she did the same sort of thing to me and just yelled at me unprofessionally during the actual recording.
So she started yelling at you behind the scenes after you invited her on your podcast. She comes at you and insults you essentially. And then
admitted that I was railroaded on the podcast.
And you didn't even, it's not like you even insulted her. All you said was, oh, like I just got railroaded. I mean, there was no like, and then she screamed for security. Security, this man needs to be escorted out.
People observed that she was yelling and getting triggered, and security got called.
Okay.
And security, and they're like, Dr. Salad, please go to your dressing room, whatever. Man. And so after that, we get dressed. I get out of my suit or whatever. I get the stage makeup off, which is absolutely the worst part of being on TV. People can't see it in the video, but everybody has this like amazing amount of makeup. It's ridiculous. And so I'm standing outside talking to one of the associate producers of the show saying, that was really unfair. I'd like you guys to get me back on. I'd like to do a real debate. And Melina Jampolis walks out of the studio to go back to her car. And I go to shake her hand again and I go, I'm sorry for what happened inside. I really would like to get you on my podcast. And she loses her marbles. She loses it. She starts screaming at me. She says, I'm not going to do that. You're just going to attack me. And again, for the second time, security at Universal Studios got called. There were these big, guys that kind of lumber out, and they're just standing around. And I'm standing there just calmly talking to her, and she loses it in the street on Universal Studios. So security got called twice because she got so triggered. Anyway, I just thought that was so funny. And I've publicly invited Travis Stork, Joel Kahn, and Melina Jampolis on my podcast. They were invited to any sort of rebuttal that I was going to do. So everyone needs to know that all of those people have been re-invited to discuss this with me in real time, to have actual real scientific debate. They could have been here today. They've just completely ignored everything. So that's the awesome part of the whole thing, is that I just had to share the truth about Melina Jampolis and how poised or
she sounds like a lovely woman. I mean, just the look that she gave you, like that is like I don't know, if my wife looked at me like that every day, I would run. I would freaking run. Man, that's crazy.
People will see what happened as we go through the show.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty crazy. So this lady, Melina, what is it? Melina Jampolis? Melina Jampolis. Somebody in the chat mentioned that she's a member of the True Health Initiative, right? That also features Katz, Willett, Dean Ornish, and a lot of these other kind of plant-based promoters. So I think that's kind of interesting. The True Health Initiative, response to assertions concerning our response to red meat reports. So these are the ones who went after the red meat paper before it was even published, right?
Well, after it got published or at the same time, yeah. So that's interesting. And, I have heard that a lot of the people on the doctors, including Travis Stork and others, are connected with David Katz and are probably also a part of this True Health Initiative. So my suspicion is that there is a real plant-based sort of agenda to this show, which is great because those are exactly the type of people that I want to talk to. Yeah. It's a little bit insidious if they won't actually let me have a conversation or just out to make me look bad. Yeah, this American College of Lifestyle Medicine is kind of a euphemism for a plant-based lifestyle.
Oh, it's a Seventh-day Adventist organization, essentially, right? And they, many of these doctors associated with Adventism, Seventh-day Adventism, there's so many conflicts of interest, it's ridiculous. But we don't even need to get into that. I mean, that's just ancillary information. That really doesn't matter so much. The content of this was what I really wanted to hash out. So they start off with the Armstrong sisters, who they did a really good job. They were very nice. They didn't, it seems like when you mentioned earlier they wanted to show that they were eating raw food, they did show some clips of like them having raw liver and stuff. But when they asked them if they eat all raw, they said, no, we don't eat all raw. We cook most of our food. So I thought I see exactly kind of what you're saying there, right? They wanted to frame it that way. They didn't get the shots.
So when they didn't get those shots, what they did is they brought up the Armstrong sisters' past history of eating disorders and tried to spin them as anorexic or bulimic for the audience or for their, the way that they were trying to depict them. So I think there might be a clip of that in the beginning. They may, but the Armstrong sisters have that on their Instagram or their social media because they wanted to be fully open about their history of having eating disorders. But I think that at least one of them, Sarah, is the woman on the viewer's left in this photo, and Ashley's on the right. And they're not twins. Ashley's a little older than Sarah, but I think that at least one of them, perhaps both, had some issues with eating disorders in the past, but this was many years ago, and they did many things beyond that time. And the carnivore diet is not a disordered way of eating for them. I've seen them eat. They eat a lot of food. They talk about the kind of food they eat. They are not restricting their food in any way, shape, or form. And actually, they asked the doctor's TV show to not bring that up because they didn't think it was relevant. Now, some might say, oh, you're asking the doctor's TV show not to bring it up because you don't want to look bad. They've been completely forthcoming about it, but the doctors went through their Instagram and used pieces of their Instagram and social media against them multiple times in this. And my impression was that they were trying to make them look like they had a psychological disorder that might be triggering them to eat food this way. That was my impression.
Yeah.
I thought that was very underhanded.
Absolutely, yeah. And when they spoke with, what was the guy's name? This male here. When they spoke with this guy, I don't have anything time-stamped here, but I'll play a clip real quick, and I'll see if this is about where I was thinking it was.
And why you thought that, in fact, was what you had.
So in this part, before I play it, it seems to me like what this guy's trying to do is discredit, basically call into question their credibility about even having autoimmune disorders, right? So he keeps using language like what you thought you might have had, what you thought maybe you were experiencing. So it's kind of like a basic, almost like gaslighting, like a very light gaslighting that he's doing to make them question, is my analysis correct? Did I really have this autoimmune condition? So let me just play this clip real quick. You got something to add before?
Both Sarah and Ashley had blood work to show that they had anti-nuclear antibodies, which were positive. So that is not an equivocal finding. So when we do ANA antibodies, which are one of the blood tests we can use to indicate lupus, if somebody has an elevated titer of those antibodies, that is essentially diagnostic of lupus. And associated with their symptoms, I think 99 out of 100 physicians would have said they had lupus or nonspecific mixed connective tissue disease, some sort of autoimmunity. So for them to suggest that they did not have lupus is a little bit ridiculous. But I agree with you. It seemed to me that they were driving at, you guys actually don't know that you had lupus. And it's like, well, yeah, they had blood work to show they had autoimmunity.
And they didn't ask. They didn't ask for that blood work. Yet they were asking, or yet they did show the things from their social media where they talked about previous manifestations of eating disorders that had screwed with them. All right, so let me just play this clip. We'll see what he says.
Symptoms you had when they started and why you thought that, in fact, was what you had.
I've dealt with chronic constipation since high school. So that was one of the symptoms that I was dealing with. It was common that I would go 7, 8, 9 days without pooping. So I'd also deal with like bloating, indigestion, acid reflux. Other symptoms I was dealing with was Raynaud's in my toes. I also was having chronic fatigue, brain fog, and then I had a lot of anxiety, which was manifesting as panic attacks and insomnia. So that's kind of like an overview of the symptoms that I was dealing with.
Yeah, and so a lot of Ashley's were going on under the surface, where mine kind of manifested on my skin. So I would deal with what you call the butterfly rash on your face, so red inflammation along the nose line, and then rashes on my skin. So I would go out in the sun and develop like a hive reaction almost. I had zero sun tolerance. It was really, really strange. Constant eye infection. So I thought pink eye was like a normal thing for people to get like once a month because it would just constantly happen to me.
It's crazy the amount of symptoms that they were manifesting, the amount of difficulties that they had. It seems like their health was falling apart. And these guys, they kind of just brush it off. Like, oh yeah, that's kind of cute that she did this diet. Let's move on, right? It didn't seem like they really cared to hear of it. Like, okay, that's enough of that. Who's this Paul guy? Like, right? So they pull you in next, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, I think they did. So you can show that. So the beginning of the video is all about their story, which I would encourage people to watch. It's really incredible. As we're saying, they did a carnivore diet and they felt much better with that. And we've done blood work on Ashley and been able to show that the ANA titer is now negative, meaning that she no longer has anti-nuclear antibodies. And both of the sisters have had their entirety of symptoms, the entire constellation of symptoms, resolve with this way of eating. So that, to me, was so striking, and I think the doctors had to find some way of invalidating that.
Yeah, and that guy's a plastic surgeon, right? The man.
He is a plastic surgeon
Okay.
who was incidentally wearing a boot on his leg because he ruptured his Achilles.
Doing what?
I forget, probably playing golf.
Hardcore.
And, you know, I said to him as I walked out, I said, more collagen, you know.
What'd he say?
You are, you know, there's irony in that, right? And we'll get further, you know. But
was he nice
this
to
guy's
you?
got a ruptured Achilles.
Was he nice to you? Was he a little bit more diplomatic than the others?
At some point later in the show, he made a comment about gout. He was not as inflammatory as the others, but he wasn't supportive.
Yeah. It's funny, someone in the chat saying, because someone said he does lipo, right? Since he's a plastic surgeon, that's probably a major part of what he's doing is liposuction in LA to people who, you know, are wanting to take shortcuts like this, who don't want to put in the hard work or, you know, change their diet and lifestyle in order to lose body fat.
I think it's possible, yeah. I'm not exactly sure what he does, but yeah.
All right, so we got the next clip here. This is the next segment. And they start out with the Armstrong sisters, you know, butter up the audience. Okay, here's these innocent little girls. They supposedly, allegedly, they were helped by eating meat and a non-vegan diet. The blasphemy of a non-vegan diet was being used as an intervention for their autoimmune condition. And then here's the next segment where they talk about, it's called How to Find the Diet That Works for You. Now, I've got to use these segment videos because they took down the video from Paul's YouTube channel. It looks like you got a copyright thing for uploading the whole thing, unfortunately.
I think CBS was frustrated because...
I just hope that who am I to tell you, Sarah and Ashley, what to eat?
But who am I to tell you what to eat? But I'm going to go ahead and do a 25-minute show trying to influence how everybody in the world and everybody watching this eats. That seems kind of dishonest.
I think this is from the end of the show.
Okay. Maybe we should jump to the. Let's see. Does the science support the carnivore diet? Was this the next segment, or was it?
What are the other options?
All right, we've got sisters say meat only diet make them healthy. Sisters' journey from autoimmune symptoms to health. This might have been the first one, right? Was it the sisters' journey?
Probably.
Starts off with this. The second one. I think it was 1, then 2. Then we've got how to find the diet that works for you. I think they might have pulled out a few segments from it. It looks like they may have chopped it up a bit.
There's one video. What are the other two videos? We should get the first video. That one where she's screaming at me. This might be it.
Okay, so
let's try this one.
All right, here we go. We got what are the benefits of a meat-only diet?
Yeah.
And what's this guy's name? The one that starts off?
Travis Stork.
Travis Stork. Okay, so starting out with Dr. Travis Stork. Do you know what kind of doctor he is? Like what he's?
I think he's an ER physician.
How do these people have time to actually be doctors if they're spending how many hours a day shooting this show, you know, caked in makeup?
I don't think many of them work as doctors anymore. Maybe a little bit here and there.
That would make sense. So they're kind of like Bill Nye the Science Guys of doctors.
Yeah, occasional. Occasional, yeah.
All right.
Sarah and Ashley have been working with Dr. Paul Saladino, who joins us now, also to discuss is internist and nutrition specialist, Dr. Melina Jampoulos. Weighing in via Skype, we have cardiologist Dr. Joel Kahn. And so I want to spend a little time.
Did they tell you Joel Kahn was coming?
Not until 10 minutes before the show. So they also didn't tell me Melina Jampoulos was coming until the day before the show. And I just want to mention something. There is no such thing as a nutrition specialist in medicine. That is not a real board certification. So at some point in this video, she will scream at me that she's a board certified nutrition specialist, and that's not a recognized board certification by the ACGME or any real profession. So there are many certifications that physicians can obtain after residency that are like that, that are not actually recognized by any specific body. So there is no governing body that recognizes her nutrition classification as in any way, shape, or form valid.
Interesting, because in that same rant, she says, I'm an OBGYN, right? Or maybe it's at the beginning, she's introduced as an OBGYN, and then she claims to be some sort of a nutrition specialist, right?
She's an internist, and the woman in pink, I believe, is an OBGYN.
Okay. I was mistaken. All right. Well, let's see what she's got to say. Let's check out this segment. Just noting, first of all, in the first 15 seconds, the tone that they set. A very specific, somber tone of like, you walk into the principal's office and it's nice and quiet. And Paul, we're going to talk about this now, Paul. We're going to talk about what you've done. It's kind of like how dare you vibe is going on in the room right there. Did you feel that when this was going on?
Of course, but you can see when they zoom in on me, I'm just like a kidney kid.
You're laughing.
I'm just laughing and smiling. I'm like, oh, cool. I finally get to talk about the carnivore diet. I'm like nervously excited.
Well, or so you think you get to talk about the carnivore.
I know, right? Yeah.
All right, let's go. Let's roll it.
Sarah and Ashley have been working with Dr. Paul Saladino, who joins us now, also discuss is internist, nutrition specialist, Dr. Melina Jampoulos. Weighing in via Skype, we have cardiologist Dr. Joel Kahn. And so I want to spend a little time digging a little deeper here into why this may be working for Sarah and Ashley. But more importantly, I just want to ask you, Dr. Saladino, when you're looking at this and you say, okay, all animal products all the time, that's it, nothing else. Why did you decide to recommend that approach?
So to be fair,
what is this question even? When the way he says your name, it's like it tastes like shit in his mouth when he says Paul Saladino. It's like, Saladino. Wow, man. Did you guys meet before this, or was this your meeting?
no, I never met him before. Yeah. We didn't talk at all before.
Okay.
Looking at this and you say, okay, all animal products all the time, that's it, nothing else. Why did you decide to recommend that approach?
So to be fair, when I first heard about this diet a few years ago, I thought it was a little bit crazy too. And what I discovered when I really dug into the research was eye-opening. It was so revealing. I think it's some of the most...
Okay, his eyes. Did they have like an onion or something like under his seat to try to make him look like he's about to cry? This dude looks like he's looking down the barrel of a gun. And being like the firing squad is in front of him. And they're like, confess. Wow.
I think that some of the most eye-opening things that I discovered in my research was all of these toxins that are found in plants, from lectins, isothiocyanates, oxalates, polyphenols. All of these things can be triggering to the immune system by damaging the gut. And I think this is what's such a radical concept here, is that when we eliminate plants, we're eliminating fiber, and we can certainly talk about the lack of human need for fiber or the lack of actual medical evidence that fiber is beneficial for humans. But we're also eliminating all of these potentially damaging things that can cause immunologic activation in humans. And I think that's what we see going on here, is that people are, when they're eating a carnivore diet, and there are thousands of people doing this now, including myself, we get all of these nutrient-rich foods without any of the toxins found in plants, and we see incredible changes in terms of all sorts of diseases beyond, autoimmune diseases across the board are changing in a way that just is so striking to me.
Dr. Jampoulos, I will allow you to respond.
I don't know what research you're reading, but there are literally thousands of studies showing the benefits of polyphenols. Let's start with those, for example, plant-based nutrients.
I don't know what thousands of studies Melina Jampoulos is referring to here regarding the benefits of polyphenols. I suspect she's referring to epidemiology. There certainly are some studies which show that fruits and vegetables can have beneficial effects, but as I'd like to point out to people, there are many studies which show that there are no beneficial effects to fruits and vegetables. So you can see her, that's the beautiful look she's giving me there. I don't know what research you're reading. Well, to be fair, I provided a list of 36 studies to the doctors for this episode. Every single person up there had a 36 study bibliography of all the studies that I wanted to talk about. So she knows exactly which studies I am reading because I provided 36 of them before this thing, but they didn't read them and they certainly didn't reference them at all during this event. So I want to do let's do a quick screen share, and I'll show you guys some of the studies that I have read which do not show benefits to polyphenols. Let's go ahead and start with one that I think is particularly interesting. So this is a really good one. Can you see that okay?
Yeah, let me resize this here.
You got that one, Tristan?
Okay, I gotta resize it. Where Zoom? There we go. And I'll pull myself off.
So green tea extract only affects markers of oxidative stress postprandially, lasting antioxidant effect of a flavonoid-free diet. People may know that polyphenols are molecules produced by plants exclusively. They're not produced by humans. There are no molecules in human biochemistry that are polyphenolic that I'm aware of. That is, there are no molecules that have multiple phenol groups. These are aromatic ring structures. I talk about all of this in my book, The Carnivore Code. It's out at the end of this month, February 25th. You guys, it's gonna drop on the doctors like a rock. Anyway, flavonoids are a type of polyphenol. And if you see, what you'll see in this study is basically that they removed fruits and vegetables to create a flavonoid-free diet. It was a 10-week period. And in one group, they kept the fruits and vegetables. In another group, they removed fruits and vegetables. And the conclusion is here at the bottom. The overall effect of the 10-week period without dietary fruits and vegetables was a decrease in oxidative damage to DNA, blood proteins, and plasma lipids, concomitantly with marked changes in antioxidant defense. So Melina Jampolis, this is some of the study that I'm reading. Let's go to another one. All right, so I think it wants me to stop the share, and then I will do another share. How about another study? There are multiple studies like this that I discuss in the book because I think this is such an interesting set of research to be aware of. Doesn't look like it's sharing the right study.
Hold on, let me see. I might need to just adjust. You're looking at the effects of high consumption of vegetables on clinical immunological and antioxidant markers in subjects at risk for cardiovascular disease.
Okay, what do we got here? All right, got it, perfect. So like I said, guys, there are 5 studies here. For the sake of brevity, I probably will not show all of them. Otherwise, it gets too cumbersome. But you can see the title of that study. Again, you can read the conclusion here. No significant diseases were detected in clinical, immunological, or antioxidant markers in biological samples, except for those of...
Uh-oh, what's going on?
Here is they had 2 groups of people, high intake and low intake of vegetables, 800 grams of vegetables per week or 4,200 grams of vegetables per week. And this was for 4 weeks. And at the end, there were no changes between them. Their conclusion, the study provides additional evidence about the uncertainty of providing a clear evidence for vegetables in modulating markers of immune function and antioxidant status. Further studies are needed to unravel the mechanisms. All right, one more, just to show you guys that this is an extensive set of literature. We will stop the share here and pull, let's do this one. Let's see here. How about this one? It's the one. Maybe it's not going to let me do it. Let's see.
Looks like the same one. Oh no, it's different.
Oh no, it's only letting me pull up that one. Anyway, I can read off the other ones to you guys. So I'll read off the other titles. I did a whole video about this on my Instagram and a whole video with Brian Sanders, which is on my YouTube and it's on my podcast, where I detail every single one of these studies. So let's go through them real quickly. I just want to read the titles. No effect, 600 grams fruit and vegetables per day on oxidative DNA damage and repair in healthy non-smokers. You can understand from the title what that one is showing. Our results show that after 24 days of complete depletion of fruits and vegetables or daily ingestion of 600 grams of fruits and vegetables or the corresponding amount of vitamins and minerals, the level of oxidative DNA damage was unchanged. Unchanged.
So this one's unchanged, but the other one where they had more fruits and vegetables, they had less oxidative stress and less oxidative damage when they weren't eating fruits and vegetables. What the heck's going on there?
The first one I showed, the first one I showed less of all that stuff.
Do you have a theory?
The first one I showed had less of all that stuff. So I stopped the share. I'll just keep reading these.
Do you have a theory on that, Paul? Do you have a theory on why they would maybe show less?
Well, I mean, I think that's the question. Are these compounds dangerous to humans, right? So one of the more contrarian views that I hold and I advance in my book is that polyphenols are actually harming us. And I'll show a study about that as well, specifically with regard to curcumin. I think that polyphenols are plant defense molecules. That's not even a question. They're known to be phytoalexins. Resveratrol is a phytoalexin molecule produced by grapes and peanuts in response to the botrytis fungus. And so curcumin is a plant pigment, but many polyphenols are phytoalexins. So of course, the whole point of a polyphenol is to damage DNA. the whole point of a polyphenol is to do negative things in the animal that's eating the plant. That's why plants evolved many polyphenols. Again, polyphenols can be phytoalexins or they can be plant pigments. So it totally makes sense that you would see this, and it's awesome that that study illustrates that. Many of the other studies don't have enough statistical significance. They're probably not actually powered enough to show, but I think that actually this is what the premise of the carnivore diet is, that the removal of polyphenols, the removal of these plant pigments is beneficial for humans. That's the whole point of this.
It's the complete opposite of the assumption that these people are going in with.
The complete opposite of what they're saying. So
Yeah.
I just want to read a few more titles. Again, you guys, if you have questions about this, look at my Instagram. I have a snippet video on Instagram from a podcast, which is on my YouTube. Brian Sanders and I did a full breakdown of these. It's a very high quality video. Increasing the vegetable intake dose is associated with a rise in plasma carotenoids without modifying oxidative stress or inflammation in overweight or obese postmenopausal women. Again, the title says it all there. We talked about the green tea extract study. Increased, that's another one I'll talk about with Joel Kahn. Those are just some examples, guys, of that effective increasing fruit and vegetable intake by dietary intervention on nutritional biomarkers and attitudes to dietary change randomized trial. This is again a 4-week trial. This is a 12-week trial, sorry. Conclusion, while increasing fruit, juice, and vegetable consumption increases circulating level of nutrients in healthy subjects, a 12-week intervention was not associated with effects on antioxidant status or lymphocyte DNA damage. They're saying it increases levels of nutrients because they're calling carotenoids, beta-carotene, and lutein and zeaxanthine beneficial nutrients. I would debate that. Interestingly, in this study, vitamin C levels increased 35% with no change in antioxidant status or lymphocyte DNA damage. So in this one study, the people increased the amount of vitamin C in their diet from 70 milligrams to 270 milligrams, and there was no change in DNA damage or markers of oxidative stress. So that's kind of a different separate point about vitamin C, but that's the illustration that I want to make there. I want to pull up one more study that I want to show people because this one gets quoted a lot, or at least I talk about it a lot. So she's saying, I don't know what research you're reading, and again, I provided them with this research. This wasn't, she should have known exactly what research I was doing.
I don't know which one of the 36 studies that you sent me that I ignored and pretended you didn't send me that you're referencing here.
Exactly, right? So and then she makes a sweeping comment and says, there are thousands of studies about the benefits of polyphenols. And I thought, well, that's interesting because I gave you 36 studies and you did not share with me a single one. Can you guys see this one? Can you see this one?
But I guess just simply saying that there are thousands of studies, yeah, we all see it. Just saying that there are thousands of studies, I guess they think that somehow proves a point. I mean, they think it's like they think their audience is so dumb that they won't question these things.
Well, I think that the audience of these shows kind of gets pulled in to listening to the hosts, trusting them implicitly, which is dangerous. Yeah. So the essential medicinal chemistry of curcumin. So I just showed you guys 3 or 4 studies, and again, there are more of those detailed in my book, which did not show any benefit to including fruits and vegetables in the diet. And I showed you guys one study which actually showed an improvement when fruits and vegetables were excluded from the diet, along with all of their flavonoids and polyphenols. This is specifically an appraisal of curcumin, and which is a polyphenol. If you look at curcumin, you can see that it has 2 phenolic rings. That's what we need, a polyphenolic structure. And I have highlighted in this study some of the things that they mention about the toxicology of this molecule. So they say that in addition to the therapeutic targets discussed below, number 1, which is curcumin, and its degradation products, shows broad reactivity against a number of human enzymes that are linked to compound toxicity, namely the HERG channel, which stands for the human ether agogo channel, which is a potassium channel, cytochrome P450s, which are phase 1 detoxification enzymatic systems in the liver, glutathione S-transferase, which is a very important enzyme in the functioning of our body's major antioxidant, which is glutathione. The reactivity of each of these classes has important implications for potential side effects. HERG is related to cardiotoxicity, P450 GST, lead to impaired detoxification, potential toxic drug-drug contraindications. Furthermore, they say curcumin, compound 1, has recently been shown to be an active iron chelator in vivo, meaning it holds on to iron, inducing a state of overt iron deficiency in mice fed diets and poor in iron. This suggests that 1 has the potential to affect systemic iron metabolism, et cetera, et cetera. What is infrequently noted, however, is that it also shows cytotoxicity against normal human lymphocytes. So they're saying that curcumin has been reported as a cytotoxic agent against important cancer cell lines, but also against normal human lymphocytes. They go on talking about other cytotoxic effects here. So basically, and then there's another paper that I could show you guys, but I will leave off for the sake of simplicity, called Curcumin, The Dark Side of Curcumin, in which the author details curcumin's potential negative effects on multiple other enzymes that are quite important in human biology, specifically thyrodoxin reductase, which is also included or involved in the process of detoxification and antioxidant stress, P53, which is a tumor suppressor gene, and others. So those are what I am reading when she is saying, I don't know what studies you are reading. Those are the studies that I provided to the doctors. And she was very aware of what I was reading. And those are the type of studies, we could go through many, and in my book I detail this ad infinitum, nearly, about the negative effects of polyphenols. We didn't even get into lectins, we didn't even get into oxalates, but I provided studies for them. She knew what kind of studies I was reading. She just didn't look at them in any way, shape, or form. But there certainly is evidence that all of these types of compounds, polyphenols, lectins, oxalates, isothiocyanates, which are from brassica vegetables, and other compounds in plants may be toxic to humans, and that's what I was referring to.
She almost let you say it.
She sort of did. We should watch the rest of that clip.
Where were we? I think I jumped forward. Let me come back and we'll see where we are.
Radical concept here is that when we eliminate plants, we're eliminating fiber, and we can certainly talk about the
back up a little bit more.
From lectins, isothiocyanates, oxalates. I don't see the video anymore on my screen. Just so you know.
Let me change the. Thank you. Let's go back to here. There we go.
Perfect. These things can be triggering to the immune system by damaging the gut. And I think this is what's such a radical concept here, is that when we eliminate plants, we're eliminating fiber, and we can certainly talk about the lack of human need for fiber or the lack of actual medical evidence that fiber is beneficial for humans. But we're also eliminating all of these potentially damaging things that can cause immunologic activation in humans. And I think that's what we see going on here, is that people are, when they're eating a carnivore diet, and there are thousands of people doing this now, including myself, we get all of these nutrient-rich foods without any of the toxins found in plants, and we see incredible changes in terms of all sorts of diseases beyond, autoimmune diseases across the board are changing in a way that just is so striking to me.
So I think you did a pretty good job at laying out your position there. I think you opened a lot. You opened yourself up for critique in many ways, right? Like you mentioned polyphenols. Everybody assumes polyphenols are good. So you gave them many possible avenues for debate, right? Like they could have picked apart and expanded upon any one of those points that you make. And then here's what her response is. Instead of responding to the studies you sent her, instead of responding to the salient points that you made about the possible toxicity of these plant compounds and the lack of them being probably beneficial to us, this is her response.
Jampoulos, I will allow you to respond.
I don't know what research you're reading, but there are literally thousands of studies showing the benefits of polyphenols. Let's start with those, for example, plant-based nutrients in the diet. And specifically in terms of lupus, and these poor girls, if they have an autoimmune condition, could be eliminating foods that have been proven to actually benefit lupus. Plus, they're young girls.
So just so people know, prior to this podcast, I did a PubMed search for diet and lupus polyphenols, and I cannot find a single study in humans which shows any benefit to any molecule that she's talking about. She's saying there are foods that have been proven to help lupus, and I did a PubMed study, I looked online, I looked at Google Scholar. I can only find studies in rats for contrived lupus models. When we do a lupus study in rats, we have to induce an immunologic condition by giving the rats a compound, and it creates kind of this contrived autoimmune model. So there are no studies. If anyone listening to this is aware of any studies that are interventional in lupus showing benefits from plants, they're interventional, please send them to me. But she didn't provide those studies to me, nor is she willing to come on my podcast and tell me what she's talking about. She's just saying there are fruits and vegetables that are proven to improve lupus, and you are depriving the girls of these fruits and vegetables. In my mind, I'm thinking, they just told you they're better. The logical fallacy here is almost unbelievable. I told you their ANA is negative, and all of their symptoms are gone. How much better can you get than fully healthy, Melina Jampoulos? I'm going to give them plants back? The part of the story that the listener may not have heard here, and that Ashley and Sarah, who were muted through this whole part of the conversation, they were muted for the entire episode. They could not chime in. They have included fruits and vegetables in their diet in the past and been worse. They actually did a plant-based ketogenic diet in the past. It did not improve their symptoms. So again, this was the type of thing that was not allowed to happen. So we can watch the end of the clip here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty fascinating. I just like looking at this freeze frame right here. Right? This is just such a lovely. This is like the spiritual manifestation of what's inside.
By eating such a heavy meat diet, they increase their risk of premenopausal breast cancer by 65%, colon cancer. They're not worried about it now, but this is a lifestyle they've set up themselves. If they continue this for the next 40 years, I can almost guarantee you that they will have colon cancer, and I pray not breast cancer too.
Wow.
So that's a ridiculous statement, right? So what she's referring to there is epidemiology. To say that there's a 65% increase in breast cancer, I mean, I don't know what study she's referencing. If she would come on my podcast, I would make her produce that. But that's epidemiology, right? And anyone listening to this will know the problems with epidemiology. And it's a survey-based study. And there are many epidemiology studies which contradict that, right? So this is the problem with epidemiology, is it's a survey-based study. It's not interventional. There's never been a study where people ate more red meat and got more breast cancer. That's baloney.
65% more breast cancer.
65% more breast cancer, right? So you can pick an epidemiology study which is likely going to be confounded by unhealthy user bias. Who eats more red meat over the last 60 years? The men and women who are rebels. These are the James Dean types. Because we've been told, because there's a narrative in our society that red meat is bad for us. So who eats more red meat? The people who ignore mainstream dogma. Now, sometimes that can be a good thing, but in this case, probably what's happening is they're also smoking more, exercising less socioeconomic status, less ability to do preventative measures, less breast exams. They're going to do less health measures, less sunlight exposure that may also be affecting their breast cancer risk. One of the things we know about breast cancer is that vitamin D levels correlate with breast cancer. Well, is that sunlight exposure? Is that exercise while you're in the sun? Or is it actually vitamin D? So that's the problem with epidemiology. They want to pin this on meat and say people who eat more meat have more breast cancer. Therefore, correlation equals causation. This we know is false, right? But she's spouting this off with her histrionic personality and saying this is what we know. And the claims about red meat are just absurd. Joel Kahn tries to get a dig in at the end of this episode, and there are.
We're gonna get to that. We gotta get that clip because that's the best. The Joel Kahn showing up. You look so surprised. It seemed to be. You're just like, what is this guy doing here?
We'll get to that. We'll get to that clip. But at the end of it, but her statement that they're going to get colon cancer really reflects a misunderstanding of the research. So in my book, I detail this very finely. Very granularly. I detail this extensively is what I mean. So we talk about the IARC report from 2015, how it's completely flawed, how there are no interventional studies which suggest that red meat causes colon cancer or increases the risk. And this is the type of thing that I think is so misleading for people, is that figurehead physicians like this, she's not really a figurehead physician, but this is a show that's seen by millions of people, hear this information based on epidemiology, when if you look at the IARC report from 2015, that was supposed to be based on a collection of 400 studies. They excluded all but 14 studies. They excluded it. They excluded every single interventional study. They excluded every study in mice and rats, and they picked 14 epidemiology studies. Of those 14 studies, 8 did not show any association between red meat and cancer. 6 showed an association, but in only one of those 6 was that association statistically significant. So what are we looking at here? 400 studies. They ignored all the interventional studies. They ignored all the animal studies, many of which did not show any increase in colon cancer risk with intervention. In fact, in the book, I talk about a study in mice in which giving them bacon decreased the rate of colon cancer. So bacon prevents colon cancer in mice. And, I don't think it's actually, preventing colon cancer. It probably has something to do with sodium, and the rats were drinking more water.
Because there's no polyphenols in it. Come on.
Yeah, there's no polyphenols in bacon. How can it prevent colon cancer? So anyway, all of these studies were ignored. And for people to this really burns me when physicians like this say things like they're fact, but won't create a platform to actually look at your references. If this had been on my podcast, I would have asked her, well, which studies are you looking at? Let's examine those.
Yeah.
But as you'll see what happens here, she gets to have her, lick. She gets to throw her punch, and I get a retort, and then somebody else throws a punch at me from the other side of the room. And we never get to address her point, which is what's so unfair about this whole position, is that it's 5-on-1, so they make it look like I'm getting taken apart. And in fact, Joel Kahn on Twitter yesterday said, "You got bitch slapped, Paul." Oh my God.
He called you a bitch. He called you a bitch. Joel Kahn, man, he never ceases to deliver the cringe moments. He brings I love, one of my favorite moments in like low carb history is Joel Kahn going on Joe Rogan and his intro. Like within a minute, Joel Kahn's talking about male erections and how there's a lot of erectile dysfunction out there, and that's my passion. And Joe's like, really? That? And he's like, yes. Joel Kahn he is so funny. I love it. But okay, so coming back to her, they give you like it's like a 30-second, maybe it was up to a minute, right? You say, you lay out your argument in a pretty good way, right? You give them a bunch of threads. Grab one of these threads, let's unravel it. Let's unravel this whole beast. Let's see what's going on here. And she just comes at you with emotional conjecture, wild gesticulation, and propaganda statements about all the studies, the science, but provides nothing. Provides no refutation.
I actually got a decent retort in here if you play the rest of the clip, but then they started interrupting me like crazy, and you'll see what happened.
Yeah, we gotta cut that off quick. If you get some decent words in, and you don't look, like a scared little shamed schoolboy, we better get you out of here. But it's just this woman's face is, I love it. It's like, these poor girls are gonna have 65% more colon cancer. She clearly doesn't understand what she's talking about. She doesn't understand how statistics work either. But all right,
No, it's ridiculous.
Let's finish this one up. I love that face.
The idea of eliminating toxins, I think, there's a lot of pesticides in foods, but the idea that the parts of plants that protect them against the environment, which is what you're talking about in terms of lectin and polyphenols, are somehow detrimental to humans. We're not plants. We don't live on air and water and sunshine.
Okay. What the hell is she talking about?
What does that even mean?
Dude, all right, wait, can you smell her breath from there? Can you smell her breath from there, Paul? Could you smell any wine on that breath, Paul?
What does she even mean? We're not plants. I don't even know what she means by that. I don't think that statement even makes any sense. But you'll see. I don't even know what her argument is here, but you can see. We can play the rest of the clip here.
Well, I love that. That's the best line, though. It's just so incoherent. We're not plants. What are you even referring to? I think she might have been a little tipsy. All right, let's go.
Toxins, I think, there's a lot of pesticides in foods, but the idea that the parts of plants that protect them against the environment, which is what you're talking about in terms of lectin and polyphenols, are somehow detrimental to humans. We're not plants. We don't live on air and water and sunshine. We're humans, and the polyphenols in particular have extraordinary benefits in terms of health. There's hundreds of studies.
I would challenge you to show me a single study that shows any harm from meat in terms of the gut that's interventional. So much of what we're looking at here with meat, it's been wrongly vilified. You're making these claims that meat is going to increase the risk of breast cancer or colon cancer. This is completely false and unfounded. Meat and animal foods are the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet that humans have been eating throughout our evolution.
I'm not saying meat is not nutrient-dense, and I'm not a vegan person.
To imagine that a food that has been at the center of our evolution throughout our path as humans would cause colon cancer, heart disease, or anything is completely evolutionary and inconsistent. And there is not a single study in existence that shows that eating meat at an interventional level is an increased risk of
There's
colon
not a
cancer.
single study with nutrition and
Okay, so
interventional
what I
studies.
don't.
The point about show me a single study that proves what you're trying to assert. She didn't. She decided, I guess, not to answer that. She just wanted to talk over you and scream more.
And then they interrupt me here. So that I feel like, okay, good. Like, show me a single study.
Yeah.
Show me an interventional study that shows that breast cancer risk is increased or that colon cancer risk is increased with meat. And she didn't. She couldn't show me. There was nothing. And they were like, okay, this is getting out of hand. We're going to shift it. We know who's next. You can see what happens here.
I don't want this to
very hard
become
to
as
do.
a.
So he jumps. He's like the moderator. He's like, let's move on. Let's not get into the actual scientific debate here. Let's get these clips. Let's get them clips in.
Yeah.
food
Look how
fight.
nervous he is. He's like, like he feels dirty.
Hey,
That's
between
what I
you two,
do
but
when
what I would actually address is there are so many different theories on food. And I just cannot handle it when someone says, someone vilifies all fruits and vegetables, someone else vilifies all meats. What I do care about is long-term health.
And then,
Okay.
so I don't like when people vilify meat, and then they bring on Joel Kahn to do exactly
Right.
that.
Who's a vegan? Yeah. So I forget which clip is next. You can choose one and we can go through it.
All right, so we got either Joel Kahn or we got, it's probably this one. Does science support carnivore? Right?
Yeah, see what that shows. Yeah, let's watch that one.
This might be when Judge Judy jumps in.
Oh, Judge Judy. Judge Mary.
Judge Mary, she is a firecracker. All right.
Dr. Saladino, when you're recommending this diet, what risks do you discuss with your patients?
I don't think there are any risks to eating animal foods exclusively. There are no risks in terms of kidney function. There are many studies which show that high-protein diets do not affect kidney function. There are no studies interventionally that show that eating meat is going to increase the risk of any single cancer. There are no risks to eating the foods that we have been eating as humans for our entire existence.
As an attorney, I would ask you, you're a medical doctor, is that correct?
Absolutely.
And you are a psychiatrist, am I
Right,
correct?
a residency in psychiatry.
So what do you know about nutrition?
What is
Where
any-
did you gain your background in nutrition?
Listen, this is, I think...
No,
is a-
you listen to me and answer my question. Now I'm asking you to tell us where your background emanates from.
Wait, they didn't even introduce this lady, did they? Where's the introduction?
I think they might have had something at the bottom of the screen saying, this is Mary Chechanowski. Her Instagram handle is Judge Scary Mary, I think, or Scary Mary, Judge Scary Mary. So I think that she's making a living now being a personality, being a scary judge that yells at people. And so she asks me a question and then she interrupts me and won't let me answer the question. Listen to me. And no, you listen to me. Like, okay, we can watch. This is actually a pretty painful clip, and then I'd like to address a lot of what happens here.
Yeah, let's watch this.
went to medical school, and I studied nutrition in medical school, and I studied nutrition independently. One of the crazy things about medical school is that it teaches you how to read articles. I'm a doctor. I know how to read
So
articles.
have
I
you
know how
done
to read
any
the literature.
independent testing? Have you written any articles that was as suggested by the physicians who've been here today?
What does writing articles
So-
have to do with my knowledge?
That's right. Have you done any independent testing? Have you written any articles? So she goes from asking me, where did you get your nutritional training? And I said, you know what? I'm a doctor. I learned biochemistry in medical school. I don't know if most people listening to the doctors realize that everybody goes to the same medical school. There's not like a medical school for surgeon and a medical school for family practice and a medical school for family medicine. We all go to the same medical school. So we all get an MD and then we choose to do a residency in the field that suits us best. So I did the same biochemistry training, I did the same nutrition training as any person up there, right? And no person up there got nutrition training in their residency. And that Melina Jampoulos, who they're putting out as a nutrition specialist, took an online or an in-person course that is not HEGME certified and is a fake nutrition certification. Nor does the judge have any nutritional training, nor does Joel Kahn have any nutritional training, nor does Travis Stork have any nutritional training as an ER doctor, nor does the OBGYN, nor does the plastic surgeon have any nutritional training that's different than what I got in medical school or residency, because in none of those residencies is any specific nutrition taught, and there is no nutrition. And why would we want it to be, right? Like, what are they going to teach us? If they're going to teach us plant-based, they're going to, like, everybody gets the same training. There is no nutrition training in anyone's residency. On Instagram, Garth, I almost said Darth, which is funny. You know, Darth Davis loves to call me a psychiatrist. So his appraisal of this doctor's interview was that I was an unqualified psychiatrist. And I just don't understand his appeal to authority. where did Garth Davis get his nutrition training? Where does anyone get their nutrition training? We have to read and learn. And she's saying, and you'll see what she says here next. You're saying just because you read articles, that makes you an expert? And I'm thinking, how does anybody become an expert? Like, we give them a magical crown that says you're an expert because you were appealing to authority and you went to some degree program that we're saying is more prestigious than another program. That's ridiculous. But Garth Davis didn't get nutritional training in his residency. None of the doctors up here got nutritional training in their residency. We all went to the same medical school. We all learned the same biochemistry in medical school. And I, for the last 10 to 12 years, have been reading books and talking to Rob Wolf and other people and reading articles and learning on my own. So I don't know what she's driving at here. And then she says, did you write an article?
Yeah, which article? What do you mean an article? What kind of an article?
Well, I wrote a book, which is a lot longer than an article.
It's kind of like a series of articles that you put together. It's called a book.
I wrote a book, and it's going to be out next month, right? It's going to be out this month, actually. So, the book has 650 references. And so she said, did you write an article? She's clearly trying to invalidate my credentials. We can keep watching here, and it gets even better.
Yeah, it's funny. You mentioned the appeal to authority thing. There's a constant appeal to authority in this segment, right? The whole program is about appealing to authority, but they're not really appealing to anything. They're just saying you don't have the authority, right? So which authority do they even want to appeal to? They can't name the authority they wish to appeal to. They don't have really a position on what the optimal human diet is, but they just know that Paul carnivore man bad is basically the message.
They're trying to paint Melina Jampoulos as the authority because she has some sort of nutritional training, which I pointed out is not actually recognized by anyone. And as I point out, I think in my retort, I've done functional medicine training, which I would not hold up as a nutritional training necessarily, but I'm a certified functional medicine practitioner. I've learned nutrition through that series. But I mean, you think about people in the space who don't even have medical degrees, who are fantastically productive and contribute so much to our knowledge. Chris Kresser is an acupuncturist, right? He's not an MD, but he's so smart and contributes so much. Rob Wolf. There are so many people that to say that you have to have I don't even know what degree they want you to have. Like you said, what's the authority anyone is supposed to have here?
Well, yeah, that's what's funny because what do they want to say? You got to be a registered dietitian? Well, who sets the curriculum for dietitians, right? I mean, this is the same thing with the university system is so politically controlled that it's the authorities that these people are very often appealing to are like the World Health Organization, the UN, the Eat Lancet Commission. I mean, they're going to be appealing to these big NGOs, these big international organizations who, in my opinion, have zero authority whatsoever, right? And the only sense of authority that they're given is through the repetition, through the propaganda on the television that these people have weaponized essentially against our culture, against real good quality food that's raised, locally, right? I mean, these people are all pushing the big money interests behind. The American Dietetics Association, behind Seventh-day Adventists, the True Health Initiative, the Eat Lancet. We're looking at Nestle, Unilever, Cargill, Bayer, Monsanto. You're looking at the biggest pharmaceutical and agricultural conglomerates in the world, global agribusiness. That's the authorities. That's what they want to push. So it's not, to me, I don't know what they're getting at here. And I guess their audience maybe, they think the lowest common denominator will just buy into, oh, look at these doctors, they're so mad. Look at the judge, she's mad. We better, the judge is always righteous. We better listen to what the judge has to say here. It's very propagandistic.
Yeah, the other thing they're neglecting to mention is that I was a physician assistant in cardiology for 4 years. So we'll see. I was in cardiology for 4 years, and let's watch this clip and then I'll comment.
Where are we at here? I think I backed up a bit. Let me come back.
Yes.
Because an expert in what?
Let's get that clap moment. Why is there a sign that cues them to clap? And
there is. Okay. There's a cue. There's a clap cue.
So they're trying to accentuate these moments where the lady thinks she gets a aha moment or a oomph or a headshot or whatever, and then they clap. That's kind of silly.
Yep. The clapping is totally staged.
And these are paid extras, right? These aren't just like someone off the street, mom and pop on the street. These are like, when they shoot these, as far as I know, these are like extras on a film, basically, right? Like people sign up, they get on lists so that they can go to this stuff.
I'm not sure where they get these people from. They're all pretty well dressed, so it's not just people off the street, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know where they get these people, but there was somebody in the back cueing them when to clap.
Did they tell them when to make somber faces? Because it seems like there's shots where it's like the people in the back, they're very...
There is one shot in there where they had somebody behind me and she was shaking her head. As I was saying, there are no studies which show that red meat is bad for the kidneys.
Mm-hmm.
There was a girl shaking her head in the background, and I was like, I only see it now, right? I can't see it when I was there, but you know, there's somebody in the audience shaking their head like he's wrong, and I'm thinking, actually, this is right, you know? Like there really are studies which show there's no problem with high protein diets in the kidneys. So this gets a little better here. Let's watch the rest of this.
Mm-hmm. Let me pull this up. Where'd it go?
More nutrition in medical school. But it is up to us to educate ourselves. Just because there's a degree that says a doctor doesn't mean that we have or don't have medical nutritional knowledge.
The bottom line is you practice psychiatry, am I correct?
I practice medicine.
You practice psychiatry, is that correct?
Medicine.
So what makes you an expert in this?
Because an expert in what? An expert in understanding human physiology? This is medicine. The separation of human into organ systems doesn't serve the patient. To say that because I'm a psychiatrist, I don't know about nutrition is a completely...
I didn't say that.
That's
your
what you were
expertise
inferring. That's what you were inferring. Well, where does the inflammation come from that causes depression and anxiety? It comes from the body. It doesn't come from the brain.
It's a scary thought process that is all you need to do is read articles to make you an expert. I want to know what kind of testing you've done, what kind of data you have, what you yourself have found regarding these issues.
I'm not sure.
Other than what reliance is on other people's
I'm not sure I understand your question because that's how
you don't want to listen to my question because you know I'm right.
No, you're wrong.
May I ask you a question? When you talk about the animal diet,
Wait a second. I'm giving the floor to...
Okay. Oh, I think I say, whoa. So you can see what happens here. If this isn't very poor form, I don't know what is. The lawyer gets to yell at me repeatedly, and then they're going to shift to another question, right? They're not even going to let me address what's going on with the lawyer. So this was probably the most disturbing thing that was said to me throughout the whole doctor's episode. You're a psychiatrist. I don't consider myself a psychiatrist. I consider myself as a physician. I don't think about the human body in terms of organ systems. I think it's all connected. And I think that this type of invalidation is very insecure on the part of anyone doing it toward me, whether it's Garth Davis or this lawyer. This is not true. This is not accurate. What I'm trying to make here, and my point, is that if someone has inflammation in their brain, that inflammation is coming from their body. To suggest that food does not influence depression, anxiety, bipolar, schizophrenia is absolutely absurd. I'm not sure what point these people are trying to make. She's trying to infer that somehow, because I went to a psychiatry residency after medical school, I am less qualified to talk about nutrition. As I enumerated earlier, there is no single residency that out there, whether it's a surgical residency, internal medicine, family practice, OBGYN, emergency room, where they talk about nutrition. So she's really trying to invalidate my credentials here in a very underhanded way. And I think it actually does a disservice to anyone with a mental health issue, because we are saying what she is saying here is nutrition has nothing to do with mental health. And as I've said many times, nutrition has everything to do with mental health. And there's no such thing as mental health without thinking about gastrointestinal health, hormonal health, dermatologic health, cardiac health. We're all connected. And so after residency and throughout residency, I've always wanted to kind of broaden my understanding and think about how things are connected. I never want to think in the box. I never just want to think about the brain. That is not how you get people better. Whether I am seeing someone with a GI issue, a dermatologic issue, a respiratory issue, a cardiac issue, a psychiatric issue, or any other issue, a rheumatologic issue in the joints, I have to be thinking about the whole body, and it's all connected. And for her to suggest that in any way, shape, or form, psychiatry makes me less qualified to think about people holistically is absolutely absurd. I mean, this just really, I think, is something that needs to be emphasized repeatedly. And as you'll see, I try to have more of a conversation with her and correct her. And then this is what they did repeatedly. Anytime I'm starting to get a good point, somebody else will jump in. I think every single one of those doctors up there had a point they were going to try and make and they were going to attack me on. And they were like, all right, now's the time for me to jump in and make him look bad. So let's watch the rest of that clip, and then you can watch where the next lady interrupts and attacks me.
Yeah. It's funny because so nobody who's a psychiatrist, I guess, is allowed to have any opinion on nutrition. The only people who are allowed to have opinions on nutrition, according to these people, are who? Like they don't even tell you what you need to be qualified, right? It's just let's disqualify him, let's discredit him. let's get this guy on the, let's put him on the bench, let's put him down, let's shame him. But it's very, very insubstantial. I guess maybe from a propaganda standpoint, some people will fall for it. They'll fall for the emotional, oh, this woman talked louder, so she must be right. Or the audience clapped, so they must know what's up.
What's a psychiatrist? My residency was 4 years. Melina Jampoulos did a 3-year residency in internal medicine. Travis Stork did a 3-year residency in internal medicine. So
guess how many years or months the greatest
Michael Greger.
He did 0 residency, right? He stopped.
I don't think he did any residency.
Never completed his residency.
Never completed his residency. So exactly, right? We're not just going to compare the size of residency or anything here. It's so silly. But let's watch the end of this one.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that they're not consistent, right? I don't think appealing. I don't think that being a doctor gives somebody any authority over anything, right?
No.
But this is what they want to portray that in this show, right? So it's like you step onto the stage, the doctors are the experts. They're the good ones. They're going to shame the bad doctors. So bad Saladino doctor.
That's exactly it.
That's good.
Medicine.
Okay, so we got Jampoulos
reading
jumps
articles.
Can I ask you a question? When you talk about the animal diet,
Wait a second.
when you talk about
given the floor to respond to this. This isn't fair.
Okay.
Right? Anyone gathers data by reading articles. Anyone gathers data by learning. What you're suggesting is not a fair criticism of me.
I'm a board-certified physician nutrition specialist.
Right.
I have been practicing nutrition.
Again, so who certified her again? Which board?
There's no such thing as a board-certified physician nutritionist. She's appealing to authority. I'm a board certified. Remember, this is a fake credential. It's not recognized by the ACGME. It's not a real residency. It's not a real board certification. Yeah. So, okay, we can go on.
Cool. Well, just so you guys know, I have 7 honorary PhDs from the University of Tristan that I just awarded myself now. So, and I also am a nutrition expert and an expert on everything I speak of because of my 7 honorary PhDs that I gave myself.
Exclusively, I'm trained as an internist. I was originally board certified in internal medicine. I have spent 20 years. You've been dallying in this for a few years, reading.
I got a question. If you're board certified, or what is it? Board certified?
Trained as an internist. I was originally board certified in internal medicine.
Board certified in internal medicine. Can you prescribe yourself Xanax? That's just, I mean, that has nothing to do with what we're doing here, but can you prescribe yourself Xanax? I don't know. And how much wine can you have with a couple Xanax before you shoot a show? That's just a question for the audience. Nothing to do with what we're watching here, of course.
I have spent 20 years. You've been dallying in this for a few years, reading articles. I've been doing it, working with patients. My oath is first do no harm. And I am not a plant-based person. I don't advocate only plants. I think meat, I think there is nutrient density. I think getting rid of the processed foods and the toxins in processed foods, that's what's damaging the gut.
That meat is dangerous.
Show me the study that broccoli is dangerous to lupus.
Okay, wait. I will show you the study.
So they told him to clap then? Was there the flash?
I think so, yeah. I don't know what they're doing. They look at this person. And then so she said, show me the study that broccoli is dangerous in lupus. And I said, I will show you the study. Let me show you all of the studies that are showing that isothiocyanates are a problem, which are not the polyphenols, but these are the plant toxins in brassica vegetables. What's crazy, okay, and her statement, I mean, anyone can probably see this. Ashley and Sarah got better when they cut out plants, right?
Yeah.
Like there is an illustration of removing plants, improving autoimmune disease very clearly. And she's saying, show me the study that says broccoli is dangerous in lupus. And I'm saying, number one, I can show you plenty of studies that isothiocyanates are damaging to humans. Mm-hmm. Number two, but you won't let me. Number two, there's a whole example here. This entire episode is about these girls that got better when they cut out broccoli and other plants. So
yeah. I thought that's what we're talking about, right? You give me a minute. Right. Give me a minute.
Show me the study. Allow me. Please allow me.
Right. Let me, if I can get a sentence in, maybe I can, maybe after that we can get to the studies. But she's just, I mean, she is screaming in your face. You guys are maybe a meter apart, right? You're not too far from her.
You can see how close we are, yeah.
It's like spittle getting in your face. Wipe it. Like a squeegee.
It's crazy, man. Yeah.
The study.
And then I like this shot. Like, oh, let's show the pretty girl. Look at the pretty girl in the audience. She agrees. She's so smart.
Show you the study.
Look at this girl. She knows. She knows she's right. Look at this propaganda. Oh yeah. Smile.
Can you please just provide the name of one reputable
Okay, pause.
medical journal that supports the meat diet.
This is the funniest question. What kind of a question is that? How is that proven a point? One reputable journal?
Right. So basically, this is just something that they had all this planned out. So I they might have clipped it there or something. We talked about curcumin. We argued about curcumin. I said I provided a study that showed that curcumin was damaging. I said I can show you studies that isothiocyanates are damaging. We never go this, and then we can talk about this section here as well. They're going to try and criticize the fact that there are very few published studies with a carnivore diet, but what they are neglecting to show me, what they're neglecting to say is that there are really no long-term studies with any diet. There are no long-term studies with any diet, and there have been, they say, show me a journal that shows a carnivore diet is safe. And I give them a study which was done from 1930. It's with Villemar Stephenson and another gentleman, and it absolutely showed that a carnivore diet was safe. And then they're going to criticize that and say, it's from 1930.
It's an old study.
I mean, it's an old study, and it's like, well, it was done at Bellevue Hospital in New York, and they monitored blood pressure and blood parameters and kidney function. I posted about the study on my Instagram multiple times, but you can see what happens here. This is interesting.
And then they bring on Joel Kahn, and he talks about this too. So I think next we'll get to Joel Kahn. But yeah, let's finish this clip. And did she cry? Like, did you see? Were there tears that came from her? She looks like she's about to rage cry whenever she talks. Like before the show, you guys are sitting there before you start filming, right? You're sitting there, and she's there with you.
Yeah.
You like shake hands. Hey, how's it going? Nice to meet you.
No. She never introduced herself. We were Melina, this woman, and I were standing 3 feet from each other before the show, and she didn't introduce herself. Nobody was friendly. Nobody said anything. They just get you out there.
Did you try like, oh hey, how's it going? Like I'm Paul Saladino. Nice to meet you. Love to.
Yeah, and she didn't even want to talk.
Wow, she didn't want to look. She didn't want to look you in the eyes. Even did she look her in the eyes?
She couldn't.
No eye contact. That's creepy.
No.
So you knew like you're like like no eye contact. Like the vibes a little closed up. You probably knew something was gonna happen.
Something's going down.
Something's about to come down. You thought they're gonna jump you or something. All right, let's go.
That's what they are asking.
Right.
Look at she just looks like she's about to cry. I can't stop saying how much she's like always about to cry. It's so sad.
1930, there was a study published in the British Medical Journal of a year-long investigation of 2 people in Bellevue Medical Hospital who were eating an exclusive carnivore diet. And during that period of time, these people experienced no negative effects, no dangerous changes in blood pressure, kidney function. They only experienced good things, a little bit of weight loss, and came out of the study saying that they felt better than when they started. So there have been prolonged, detailed studies of a full carnivore diet.
It's a 1-year study from 1930.
Of 2 people. Has there been anything since 1930 with more than 2 people?
There was a study at Harvard done looking at the carnivore diet with regard to gut flora. And so they put people on a carnivore diet for 1 week, and they looked at changes in gut flora, and they didn't see any change in the microbiome in terms of alpha diversity. There was
1 week. Literally, there are thousands and thousands of studies that
This guy's so funny. He's like, I hate when mom and dad fight. Why are you always fighting, mommy and daddy? What's with this always? When I was
so now we're going to get to more generalizations. They're going to say 2 people for 1 year. I would challenge people to show me there are not that many studies that are that detailed as the 1930 Bellevue study. I'm not familiar with any studies of a vegan diet that were as detailed as that Bellevue study, but the Bellevue study was so valuable because Villemar Stephenson and the other guy actually stayed in Bellevue Hospital for the first month or 2. They were cloistered, they were locked in a ward, and then they came back to the hospital every week. So the amount of detailed intervention and the detailed adherence to the diet was so much greater. Now, they could say like, oh, there's studies with tons of people for vegan diets, but look, I would challenge people to look at studies, long-term vegan diet studies. There are actually not that many studies of a vegan diet that are a year long, right? And how adherent are people to this vegan diet? Villemar Stephenson and this other guy were absolutely 100% adherent to a nose-to-tail carnivore diet. It's actually a fascinating study.
It's amazing, and anybody can read this study. If you look, what would be the keywords to find this study? Because it is available as a PDF online.
Yeah, I'll find it for people, and I'll actually do a screen share. It's like cool. Kidney function in prolonged ketosis is the title. It's 1930 Bellevue Hospital. I posted about it on my Instagram. If people go to my Instagram, they'll find the post from like a couple weeks ago. There's a picture of Wilhelm Stephenson. Let me actually pull it up now.
And I would challenge any of these vegan doctors, any of these vegan proponents, which, I mean, obviously they're not acting like they're vegans, right? But they bring in Dr. Joel Kahn. This woman allegedly is associated with the True Health Initiative, who pushes a lot of this plant-based type propaganda. I would challenge them to find a single study that is as comprehensive, that is as controlled, as well controlled as this study of Wilhelm Stephenson and Anderson. So the Stephenson-Anderson study is fascinating. And if anybody wants to read more about this subject, highly recommend getting the book, The Fat of the Land. It's also released under the name Not by Bread Alone. So you can find that book anywhere, Goodreads or Amazon or something. Don't support Amazon, though. Get it from another place.
Study is called Prolonged Meat Diets with a Study of Kidney Function and Ketosis. It's open source. Anyone can Google that. You can read the entire PDF. And so what's crazy is they're laughing and they're saying it's 2 people, it's only a year long. And I'm thinking, Travis, how many controlled studies do you have on any diet, right? I mean, like a paleo diet or, a paleo diet or any other diet that is a year long. It's actually pretty hard to do these studies. Very few of these are done this long. Yeah. So it's a reasonable study. And
I don't think it could be done now. I don't think anybody would do a study like this now, right? Like
I don't think you would do a year-long nutritional study. That's exactly the study we need: is a carnivore group, a vegan group, a plant-based group,
absolutely,
a paleo group, and we need to compare markers over a year. But it's a reasonable study. There's nothing wrong with the study. They're guffawing at a 1930 study, which was really well done.
And they didn't read it. They didn't read the study because it actually...
They did not read it, no. And of course, this was one of the studies that I provided in my bibliography to them prior to the show. So.
Yeah. How respectful of them. You spend all this time giving them this information, and they shove it right back in your face. But
they don't even do it. We should watch the rest of Travis's reaction. Travis's reaction now has been reposted by all of the vegan media saying, oh, look, this carnivore doctor got spanked, like...
Yeah, as if this is a refutation. Oh, I want to cry and scream. I'm so uncomfortable and I don't know what to say because I need my 10-second clip, but it's like, it's just emotion. It's just an emotional ejaculation of nothingness.
That's crazy. Yeah, you can watch. Let's watch the end of this one and then I'll respond to it.
And so they put people on a carnivore diet for 1 week and they looked at changes in gut flora and they didn't see any change in the microbiome in terms of alpha diversity. There was
1 week. Literally, there are thousands and thousands of studies that show the benefits of fruits, vegetables, nuts, and we're not saying it's bad for you. I ate meat last night, but you keep getting back to, no one is saying meat is bad for you. What we are saying is, if all you eat for your whole life ever is just meat, that's not good. I don't have to be a doctor. I'm just like, I'm blown away right now.
I mean, it's just like a 13-year-old child's response, right? It's like, emotion.
This is Hollywood, right? This is what gets views. This is what gets views in Hollywood. There's no science in that statement. He said there are thousands and thousands of studies showing benefit. And I said, to what? And he said, fruits and vegetables. Well, as I showed you in this, that's not true, actually. There are very few studies which show benefits to fruits and vegetables. Again, he might be referring to epidemiology, which is likely confounded by healthy user bias. I don't actually know what he's referring to because it's not a debate. It's just comedy. It's just theater. And as we discussed at the beginning of this video, there are many studies which do not show a benefit to fruits and vegetables. And the carnivore diet itself is so challenging to people because the carnivore diet suggests that in a lot of people, eliminating fruits and vegetables can be beneficial. So we have now thousands of case studies, many of which are published, right? Paleomedicine has done a great job of publishing many case studies of people doing much better on carnivore diets. I would encourage people to check out their stuff. It's indexed there. They have published case studies of ulcerative colitis, or at least Crohn's. They've published case studies of Crohn's, cervical cancer, type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, I think it's rectal cancer, and perhaps glioblastoma multiforme, which is a brain cancer. So there are so many anecdotes and now published case reports suggesting that the removal of fruits and vegetables can be beneficial to humans, that we cannot ignore this. This is what the carnivore diet and the movement is so about. Like, we can't ignore that some people get better when you take out plants. And now we have Travis Stork throwing up his hands and saying, there are thousands of studies, this can't possibly be good for you. I ate meat last night. I don't even need to be a doctor. I just don't even know what to think about this right now. Now, I do want to mention, I'm going to throw Travis Stork under the bus right now because I've invited him on my podcast multiple times to discuss this, right?
Dude, he put himself under the bus. He wedged himself under that bus. He's well planted there. He crawled right under.
So why don't you go to Travis Stork's Instagram, and there's recently a video of him going into the ocean. So Travis Stork wrote a book called The Lose Your Belly Diet, right? Which actually was widely, promoted and was a pretty wide. So there's Travis Stork with some gynecomastia and probably at least 10 to 15 pounds of fat on his belly. So this is a guy who wrote the Lose Your Belly Diet, who's pretty skinny fat, right? That's looking kind of skinny fat to me.
Nice little B cups.
Just looking pretty obese.
For sure, he's got some B cups. He's got some nice little.
He's got some B cups. And then as you watch him go into the ocean, you'll see his love handles. He has some fat around his abdomen. So this guy is not fit at all. So you can watch him.
Well, and the viscera right there, that visceral fat, that's highly associated with insulin resistance, right? You start pounding.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can't see his visceral fat, but I know that his visceral fat. So you can see him, that's Travis Stork.
Get them little love handles.
Going into the ocean with his belly, and he's not fit, and he wrote a book called The Lose Your Belly Diet. So this is
which part of Malibu? Which part of Malibu do you think this is, Paul?
I don't know.
Malibu. He rode his horse. He rode his horse there.
There's a couple of other photos of him. You can see him with his shirt on. He's definitely got. And I mean, I don't mean to be petty here, guys. But this guy he's kind of soft. He certainly has gynecomastia a little bit. Like he's got some man boobs there.
Santa Rosa Beach, Florida. Okay.
Santa Rosa Beach. There's one more down there, which is quite ironic. There's a picture of him and his wife. I wish them all the best. But he has a shirt on that says beer belly, like beer belly. You can't see his beer belly, but he's got one. So this is the guy criticizing me about the carnivore diet.
Well, it's sympathy weight. You gain that sympathy weight when your wife gets
pregnant. Yeah, right there.
But he gained some sympathy weight a little bit before that. That shirt used to fit him nicely, you could tell.
Travis, I invited you on my podcast, man. I mean, show up, anyway.
Like, I can't even. OMG, OMG. That's basically Travis's whole show right there. OMG, I can't even.
Let's watch a few more clips and then we can wrap it up.
Yeah, we got to get to the Joel Kahn. Let's see. All right, so we got
to get the Joel Kahn.
Is eating meat only? All right, so there we go. Is eating meat only healthy? This is by far my favorite because I just love laughing at Joel Kahn. Like this dude just all he has to do is wink and I'll laugh. So all right, let's
plants, right? There are people who eat primarily animal.
Significant decline in health outcomes. And I don't know that anyone here is suggesting that a plant-based diet is the way to go, but what I am suggesting is that there are toxins in plants, that we do not need things in plants, and that there are no studies showing that meat is damaging for humans.
Dr. Kahn, go ahead.
I just want to say, unfortunately, it's going to be 10 to 20 years till we can really judge if there's actually ever a prospective study of more than 2 people in the 1930s, cancer and heart disease risk. These are slow-growing processes, and meaning it 1 week of a microbiome study, 1 year in a metabolic lab in the 1930s when they didn't know what high sensitivity C-reactive protein is.
What's that have to do with anything, Joel Kahn? Because we've got thousands of people who are measuring their CRP or measuring their high sensitivity C-reactive protein and going carnivore, even many of them from vegan diets who have listened to shitty advice from you and Dr. this guy, your other cohort, listening to the terrible advice that these people are giving about the daily dozen bowel movement diets and how to have better, bigger boners by going vegan. People are wrecking their guts, they're wrecking their health, and their CRP is dropping dramatically when they go carnivore. So it's funny that he brings that biomarker up when, a simple peruse through like carnivore Twitter, you're going to find thousands of individual anecdotes, which what's the plural of anecdote is evidence, right? These individual anecdotes, all of these people who are reversing serious autoimmune conditions and lowering their CRP, but they didn't know what CRP was back then, so it's invalid. The hell is that?
It's so ridiculous. So I'll share this one real quick. Increased lean red meat intake does not elevate markers of oxidative stress and inflammation in humans. And you'll see here that our results suggest that partial replacement of dietary carbohydrate, imagine that, with protein from lean red meat does not elevate oxidative stress or inflammation. And in fact, the markers went down. So what they did was they added half a pound, 8 ounces of meat per day, and they removed carbohydrates. Markers of oxidative stress and inflammation were measured at baseline, and at the end of the intervention, the higher protein, lower carbohydrate intervention lowered levels of inflammatory markers and oxidative stress. So Joel Kahn, people vilifying meat or saying that meat causes inflammation have no ground to stand on. Again, I did a whole Instagram, YouTube video on this. People can find that snippet there as well.
You like how Joel Kahn, how he brought out a stethoscope to put around his neck? He's wearing a suit, and he throws a stethoscope out there as a prop to make him seem more authoritative. What a dork.
Crazy. And then, it's interesting for him to say it was not a prospective study. It was actually a real study. It was an absolute observational study. It was not epidemiology. It was not prospective. This is not epidemiology that he's suggesting. And then he's saying a 1-week study, a 1-year study of 2 people in 1930. Like, Joel Kahn, show me the studies with vegetarians and vegans that are actually not epidemiology, that are not, that are not real observational studies. These type of studies have not been done in vegans. 2 vegans have never been put in a hospital for a year or observed with this level of attention for a year. This is unprecedented, this type of study. So he's referring to large amounts of epidemiology, and again, it's biased by healthy user confounding.
Yeah,
so
and he can't
he's
jump.
Talk about.
Go ahead.
What's that?
Oh, I was gonna say he's not even able to jump through the hoops that he's trying to set up for you to jump through. He can't even. Bring his
he's going to talk about TMAO here, and I want to talk about TMAO. So we'll see the rest of what he has to say.
Well, Dr. Joel Kahn is the foremost expert on TMAO, so.
The world expert on TMAO. We'll see if that's true or not.
Well, look at the stethoscope, man. Can't you tell?
Dr. Kahn, you're a
wait, where'd it go? Yeah.
Cardiologist. And when you start to look at eliminating highly processed foods, I think
no. Did I skip? Where did we go?
Different clip.
There we go.
Not meaningless, but they did not win the day today, and I know everybody knows that.
I almost want to back it up, but I don't want to go too much into this, but Dr. Joel Kahn seems to be slurring his speech quite a bit in this. He's getting Dr. Greger level slur. I don't know if he got a fat lip or something, or if he's maybe had a little wine with our friend before the show, but he definitely seems like he's either a little bit tipsy, had a stroke, or got punched in the lip and can't talk right. There's something like with his left lip. I'm just going to back up a little bit, and I could be crazy here. Tell me if you think I'm wrong. He seems to be slurring a little bit, maybe a little sloppy.
Unfortunately, it's going to be 10 to 20 years till we can really judge if there's actually ever a prospective study of more than 2 people in 1930s, cancer and heart disease risk. These are slow-growing processes, and meaning it 1 week of a microbiome study, 1 year in a metabolic lab in the 1930s when they didn't know what high-sensitivity C-reactive protein is, are not meaningless, but they did not win the day today, and I know everybody knows that. The National Institutes of Health just gave the Cleveland Clinic $12 million of our taxpayer money to study the impact of meat on TMAO and the microbiome, because there are 1,000 studies that are indicating harm, and I am a world expert on TMAO, Dr. Saladino. Don't take me on this. You will not be happy. I will not be kind. Wait 10, 20 years before you play with this dangerous diet.
The reason this is...
Okay. It's just a sound clip. It's like I said, where's the substance? There are studies. I'm an expert. You're wrong. That's all I hear.
Yeah, let's see what my retort is, and then I'll talk about TMAO.
Yeah.
Dangerous is when people become so blinded by their own personal agenda that...
Yeah, speaking of which, you're talking to a vegan right here, Joel Kahn, who dismisses anything that disproves his cash cow veganism.
They start
so I want to talk about
everything else.
Let's pause it. So I want to talk about TMAO because, again, Joel Kahn brings up TMAO. There's no opportunity for me to rebut this. TMAO is something that I've talked about repeatedly on multiple podcasts and stuff. TMAO is trimethylamine oxide. It's formed from trimethylamine. And there are no interventional studies in humans suggesting that TMAO is directly dangerous. The data regarding, I want to take Joel Kahn on. I've invited him on my podcast multiple times. I want to talk to you about TMAO. There's only epidemiology suggesting an association between TMAO and increased incidence of diabetes and heart disease. Now, what's so fascinating here is, again, we cannot say that correlation is causation. And we do not have interventional studies in humans to show that TMAO is causing these problems. A really interesting paper came out last year. I'll tell you guys the title. Again, the title is sort of illustrative. Assessment of causal direction between gut microbiota-dependent metabolites and cardiometabolic health, a bidirectional Mendelian randomization study. I will actually screen share this so that I can show you the abstract and the conclusion. So what they show here, it looks like it's not working. Why is it not working?
You got the, that's the Stephenson-Anderson study, I think. Yeah. No, that was something else.
Try one more time here. Technical difficulties. No, it's still not doing it. What is it?
That's the TMAO.
You might have to change something. It's not letting me share that one. I can read it.
That's weird. Something's coming up, and then it went away.
Yeah.
It was.
Let me try one more time.
Yeah. See, at the bottom, it's about TMAO. I just see the bottom of a page.
Okay, so that is coming up. Okay, good. So this is what they're found here. We found further that type 2 diabetes and chronic kidney disease were causally associated with higher TMAO levels. Our Mendelian randomization findings suggest that type 2 diabetes and kidney disease increase TMAO levels, and observational evidence for cardiovascular diseases may be due to confounding or reverse causality. And so what they're saying here is that in the setting of insulin resistance, in the setting of cardiovascular disease, and specifically in the setting of type 2 diabetes and in the setting of chronic kidney disease, we are going to excrete less TMAO, or we are going to make more TMAO, and that raises TMAO. It's not TMAO that is causing diabetes or chronic kidney disease. It is chronic kidney disease and diabetes that are causing TMAO to rise. And so the world expert on TMAO is relying on epidemiology, which has been called into question repeatedly.
What makes him a world expert too? Suddenly I'm a world expert on TMAO. I mean, when he was talking to Kresser not too long ago on Rogan about TMAO, he didn't seem to know much of anything about it. He just knew a few propaganda points that he had repeated that he read online, it seemed. It seemed like he was like Dr. Greger level expert when he last spoke on it.
Yeah, right. It's so silly. And people may know that TMAO is increased when we eat choline and carnitine, two nutrients that are very valuable for humans and that are only found really in animal foods. And so it's a great straw man. It's a great, whipping boy for the plant-based people to say, oh, choline and carnitine and red meat are causing your TMAO to rise, except it doesn't make any sense. It's just absolute fallacy. There's no evidence that these are actually dangerous for humans. And in fact, we know that deficiencies of choline are associated with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. They're associated with inadequate cell membrane construction. You don't make enough VLDL in the liver can't export VLDL, and you get fatty liver. We need choline to make all the cell membranes in our body, all the acetylcholine in our body, which is a neurotransmitter. So the whole thing is just absolutely ridiculous to suggest that those very valuable animal-based compounds are hurting humans. So let's watch the rest of what Travis says here.
Just to clarify your position, do you think TMAO is actually harmful and bad, or do you think this is a biomarker that they're hyper-focusing on that has associations with other disease states possibly, and that they're contextually skewing this to make it seem like this is a demonized, the demonic thing floating around in your body trying to kill you? Do you think it's...
Exactly. I don't think TMAO is bad for humans. I've never seen any convincing evidence that TMAO as a molecule is bad for humans. And interestingly, in the people I work with who are on carnivore diets, I have seen TMAO levels that are high and TMAO levels that are low, right? So it probably has to do with the gut flora, and some of us have gut microbes that make TMA from choline and carnitine, but there are many studies I've seen which show, or at least even anecdotes, where vegans and vegetarians can have high levels of TMAO as well. So,
but I'm sure that's good. That's probably good if they're vegan and vegetarian. TMA is good.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I heard sometime somebody on a podcast say something like, "Oh yeah, TMAO is good when it comes from fish, but it's bad when it comes from meat." And I was like, what kind of sorcery is this?
Good from vegetables.
Yeah.
Vegetable TMAO is good, meat bad.
Exactly, vegetable TMAO is good. What are you talking about, man? It's ridiculous.
So there's no consistency, right? The appeals to authority,
No.
but then there's no consistency. They're not able to name the authority they even wish to appeal to. It's just general discrediting of Paul Saladino, which is, I mean, it's very low-level propaganda technique, and right out in front of everybody to see. So let's see what this mannequin has to say.
Dr. Khan is a vegan, okay? I'm not. And so if Dr. Khan, if he said right now that anyone who eats any animal-based products is jeopardizing their health for the rest of their lives, I would say, Dr. Khan, you're wrong. I'm not saying, like, in my opinion,
he's so unbiased. This is how amazing. He's the total neutral source, right?
There are people out there who include meat in their diet and do really well. But you cannot sit here and say that the best, like, if every single person in this room eliminated all fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds from their diet, you cannot sit here and look me in the eyes and tell me that we have data that we're not potentially ruining all of our health over the long term.
That's a weird. So you don't have data that we're not damaging our health over the long term. It's like he's giving you unprovable clauses. You can't prove this.
Well, what he's saying there, because he just admitted that meat is not bad for humans, right?
Mm-hmm.
So admittedly, Travis and Melina agree that meat is not bad for humans, or at least they would not say this. So what he's suggesting there, the inference is that nuts and seeds, fruit and vegetables have benefits for humans. Okay, well, show me the study that reproducibly, illustrates that. And as we talked about at the beginning of this show, there are many studies which suggest that is not the case, and some studies which suggest completely the opposite. And how does Travis Stork, how does Melina Jampoulos, how does Dr. Khan account for thousands and thousands of people on carnivore diets getting better? I'm not saying a carnivore diet is going to be the best thing for every single person on the planet, but man, there are thousands of people kicking tons of butt with a carnivore diet right now. So Travis's statement there, you're right, it's a double negative. You can't show studies which show that excluding these things is not going to harm you.
It's like a quadruple negative, man.
Why do you think it's damaged? Like, what about that statement is hard for you, Travis? Do you believe there are nutrients in those foods we need? Do you believe that polyphenols are beneficial? It's just such a broad statement, like an unprovable thing. We're never going to do a 10-year study with a carnivore diet. Nobody's ever going to pay for that.
Yeah. Oh, how about a vegan diet? Show me a 10-year study on a vegan diet.
Yeah, there's no 10-year studies with a vegan diet. I can definitely show you plenty of studies which suggest that excluding meat is very damaging for humans. Mm-hmm. So let's see, what else does he say after that? Let's see if I probably got
eliminate all foods from our diet.
Thank you.
What I'm saying.
It interrupts you to, applaud a point you didn't even make yet.
Yeah.
Thank you. I am bringing attention to the notion that fruits and vegetables contain things that can be harmful to humans. And in cases where humans are not getting better, we should consider a carnivore diet that excludes those as a safe option, because there are no detriments to eating only meat.
So back to Sarah and Ashley, because this is important. I like the point you just made. I thought that was very valid. If you're Sarah and Ashley and you've tried every possible diet and it hasn't worked for you, and over the short term you try something like this, who am I to judge them? They're doing well. But you are still in your 20s. And you do need to think about your long-term health. So I would recommend that you keep doing what you're doing for the most part, if that's what you want to do. But do not listen to anyone who tells you that all fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, legumes, fiber is terrible for you, because over the long term, you might be jeopardizing your health. You just don't know it.
I think it's fair to say, just like you're saying.
How much are they cutting out in between this stuff too? Like these cuts.
I don't totally remember, to tell you the truth. Yeah. But that's a valid statement by Travis to say, could cutting out these foods be damaging for you? That's the only real play that the doctors have, is we don't know what's going to happen long term, because clearly they have Sarah and Ashley who got incredibly better when they cut those foods out. So the only play the doctors have is this is going to harm you long term. And yet they can't give me any mechanism for that. They can't give me any specific concern. They're kind of basing their entire argument on this very broad statement. This could hurt you long term. Well, I'm thriving today. what about it is bad for me? And this is what they cut out of the doctor's segment. I repeatedly asked Travis, what about this are you worried about? What are you worried about? Because in this podcast with you and this video with you, we've already talked about fiber. Well, we haven't talked about fiber specifically, but we talked about breast cancer and colon cancer and the fact that those are ridiculous and based on epidemiology. So what are they suggesting is dangerous about this diet long term? Polyphenol deficiency? Man, I have a raging case of polyphenol deficiency right now. I feel freaking great. I have a six-pack, right? People see me on Instagram. I'm healthy. I'm happy. Like, how much, when is this polyphenol deficiency going to set in? 10 years, 20 years? I don't understand people in the nutritional space who believe in a 10-year event horizon for problems. 6 to 8 weeks. Like, what are we talking about? What nutritional deficiencies is somebody going to have after 10 years that don't show up after 2 years? Or, I mean, these people have been doing this diet for over 2 years or a year and a half now.
Yeah. And I mean, again, very little of substance coming from the crew of the doctors, right? I mean, very little in terms of, I mean, absolutely nothing in terms of actual refutation of the points you're making. Just kind of blanket statements. Oh, well, we just don't know. We don't know that it's not going to kill you. We don't know that it's not going to make you grow a third arm. We don't know that it's not going to, it's not going to put you in a grave. But apparently the other woman, she does know that it will give them cancer, right? She said, you will get, and what a thing to say. You know, as a doctor, what a thing to say to two young ladies who've suffered through autoimmune conditions, probably at points thought that they might be on the road to a very quick and rapid, painful death. What a thing to say to these girls. I guarantee you'll get cancer. I'm still a little bit shocked that she said that.
Crazy stuff, man.
Right?
Crazy stuff.
But the last clip that's even in here, it's Joe Kahn again. I don't know if we could stomach any more of the con man here, but he does bring up Dr. Sean Baker. He throws Dr. Sean Baker under the bus, and he flashes up on the screen. This is the best part. So he's so excited. He's so giddy to start showing he's got more props. He's got more props. The first prop was his stethoscope, but he's got more.
Garbage, and you put in a balanced diet, and that's Canada, that's Australia, that's Italy, that's our USDA. I wonder what Dr. Saladino, a colleague of mine and a psychiatrist, was doing research on this morning in the National Library of Medicine PubMed is all the research studies that are randomized on the carnivore diet. There is not one. I want to share with you when his colleague...
So because there's not a randomized study on something, it means, it's useless, it's terrible, we should all avoid it. There's no randomized studies on, can you do jumping jacks with, can you sneeze and cough at the same time? Like, I don't see any randomized studies so you're not going to die if you sneeze and cough at the same time. But it's like, that the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence.
And I love that the producers cut to me and tried to make it, they're like, let's, they're going to show my face now. And I'm smiling because I'm like, this is so ridiculous.
As the knife goes in.
There are no randomized trials on a vegan diet. I mean, there are no randomized trials on a carnivore diet. Well, I mean, how many randomized trials are there on vegan diets that are long-term? There's probably some, but there's not a ton. And what are their endpoints and what are they looking at that's actually valid? So again, it's props. It's just he's manipulating people, and it's also silly to say like there's no randomized trials. Well, I mean, we've got tens of thousands of people doing this. We have tons of anecdotes. Let's do the randomized trials. We do them next. What do we don't like? And so my point was, all right, Joel Kahn, there are no randomized trials on a carnivore diet. What are your concerns? Like, I'm a physician. We got labs on these girls. We're getting blood work on these people. What sort of things are we worried about? And they're saying, I think their only play is they're going to get an occult colon cancer in 20 years, which we're not going to know about because, as we've seen, their blood work looks fine. All the blood work that we do is normal on a carnivore diet. I mean,
and they didn't show LDL. They didn't show the blood work. They didn't want to talk about that.
They didn't want to talk about the blood work. All he wanted to show was Sean Baker's blood work. And, listen, I respect Sean. He and I do the carnivore diet completely differently. Sean is 6'5". He works out like crazy, right? It's so silly.
It shows the blood work. And it's funny because Sean got that blood work the day after he did crazy deadlifting with Mark Bell, too. I always thought that was a funny detail. If I was Sean, I don't understand why he doesn't get blood work again, but we've got thousands of examples of people showing their blood work before, during, after carnivore interventions, and we see nothing but improvements and everything, except, of course, the LDL thing happens. And, the vegans love to pick that one apart, too. But even his LDL wasn't that crazy high.
His LDL wasn't that crazy high. I think I'm going to talk about this more in the future. if you look at carnivores or people on ketogenic diets and you get a reticulocyte count, you can show that the red blood cells have a longer life, and that can spuriously elevate the hemoglobin A1C. So for Joel Kahn to suggest that Sean Baker was pre-diabetic is pretty absurd, because what Sean may have not had was a fasting insulin, but to suggest that someone has high fasting glucose and a high hemoglobin A1C and is therefore pre-diabetic is missing out the fasting insulin. And as we know, hemoglobin A1C can be, again, elevated by increased red blood cell life on a ketogenic diet. That's been demonstrated. If you check the reticulocyte count, you can calculate your red blood cell life. And the high glucose was probably due to the fact that he was working out very hard the day before. So unfortunately, Sean has not repeated his labs. I think if Sean repeated his labs and we were a little more consistent and did not have him do a crazy workout, they probably wouldn't look that bad.
Well, what about your labs? Like, he didn't ask you for yours. He's just like, here's this example, Sean Baker, and he puts his name on TV at the top of this piece of paper, shows this piece of paper that he cherry-picked, and he didn't even show all the lab values. He picked the ones that he wanted to show. He didn't show his fasting insulin, of course, which was like, what, 0.1 or 0.2 or something?
It was probably 1 or 2, yeah, exactly. And they didn't ask me about my labs, which are all good, and I've discussed many of them publicly. I've talked about my 5 times less than 0.3 CRP. My fasting glucose is 80. My hemoglobin A1C is 5.3. My BUN is within normal. My bicarb is within normal. My creatinine is within normal. And my testosterone is 700 to 800. And so, like, I think this is just playing dirty, like, this isn't me. This isn't the way I eat a carnivore diet. This is not Sarah and Ashley. It's just it's so misleading.
Yeah. And well, Khan's got a real chip on his shoulder about Sean Baker. He's obsessed with Dr. Sean Baker. All the vegans are. Like, these people, they're constantly attacking him. Sean Baker and Joe Rogan are like the big bad wolf of the vegan internet madhouse. And they hate the guy. So it's kind of pathetic. Like, it's very childish and pathetic. But this is Joe Kahn. He always brings the cringe. He always brings the the 7th grade level analysis of this stuff, and it's just another example, in my opinion, of the social degeneracy of a lot of these vegan proponents. Like, these people have no idea how to interact with people. The way that he treated you, as well as, you got bitch slapped on Twitter and stuff. It's just like, dude, you're pathetic. So yeah, that's the Joel Kahn stuff. I don't think he doesn't really add anything else after this. Did you want to watch the rest of the clip?
No, it's fine. We don't have to watch the rest of the clip. We've gone long enough. I think that maybe if there are other parts, maybe we can open it up to questions or see if there are other parts of the doctor's episode that people want to respond to. The only thing I'll mention is that at the end of the episode, Joel Kahn asks the lawyer, I don't know if they included this in the episode. He says, Mary, or he says, Judge, I just want to know if Dr. Saladino is going to be liable at the end of, in 20 years, if these women get cancer. I just want to know if Dr. Saladino is going to be liable.
Wow.
And I was like, that is so underhanded, Joel Kahn. That is so underhanded. Again, we've talked about there's no evidence that red meat causes cancer. And for him to suggest that, and to suggest that this is,
Well, this is what it shows. These people want to shut up their opposition. They want to shut them up. They want to silence them with legal maneuvers. They want to silence them with not just propaganda, but they want to shackle them. I mean, Joe Kahn would be so happy to see you and Dr. Sean Baker dragged off to prison for daring speak against the medical establishment and their view about what we should eat, what we should do, and it shows a very, very almost sociopathic, psychopathic tendency there by Joel Kahn. I think it just shows what a rat he is inside. That's kind of
he's not impressing me.
Yeah.
I want to just mention something real quickly. I looked up the randomized studies on vegan and vegetarian diets. There are some. One is effects of vegetarian diets on blood lipids, a systematic review and meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials. And so, again, if we're looking at vegetarian diets and blood lipids, what we know about a carnivore diet very clearly is that it's probably going to raise LDL. Hopefully no one listening to this thinks about LDL in a vacuum. And I've done many podcasts on LDL. I did a podcast last week with Ivor Cummins on LDL. I think that what we know very clearly, or there's a large amount of evidence to suggest that LDL in and of itself is not atherogenic, that there's context there. And what we know very clearly about a carnivore diet is that it almost invariably improves triglyceride to HDL ratio, and improves insulin sensitivity. So if there are questions about what a carnivore diet does to lipids, it is going to improve the markers that matter most, which is triglycerides and HDL and the ratio between them. There's another study, plant-based diet in impact on cardiovascular risk in obese children with hypercholesterolemia and their parents. Again, this is the problem with these studies is they're all based around an LDL-centric paradigm. So that makes them a little bit difficult to interpret. Multi-center randomized controlled trial of plant-based nutrition to reduce body weight and cardiovascular risk in a corporate setting. I don't know how they're defining cardiovascular risk.
It's always LDL. It's almost always LDL. So
it's always LDL, which we know is flawed. And we certainly know that a carnivore diet is going to reduce people's weight. So my point here with these, people can look all those studies up. My point here is that many of the endpoints that have been studied in a randomized fashion for vegan or plant-based diets have already been generated for carnivore diets. We know very clearly they reduce insulin resistance, that they reduce diabetes, that they improve markers of vascular health in terms of triglyceride to HDL ratio, that they lead to weight loss, and they improve insulin sensitivity. So it's so misleading when he says there are no studies, and we think there's plenty of data on all of those endpoints already. So that's annoying.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So we got some super chats here. The audience got some questions for us. And if you guys got any more questions, you throw the super chats out there. We will read those. We will answer those. Let me start here at the beginning. Let's see. We've got Lauren Beck. What's up, man? Sends, I think those are Canadians, CAD. Sends $2 Canadian, which that translates to 0.02 cents in dollars. No, I'm kidding. I don't know how the Canadian dollar's doing right now. It was pretty bad a while back, but hope everything's good up there in Canada. Hope you're staying warm, Lauren Beck. He says, welcome back, bigot. Hey, Paul, thanks for your bravery. All right. Aaron, the big black dude, $2 says, how much was cut out of this interview? Oh, I kind of asked that.
You know, I don't think a whole lot. There were a few points that I made and probably a few retorts that I made that were cut out, but we filmed for probably 25 minutes, maybe 30 minutes. Oh, yeah. It's hard to say. I don't remember all of it, and they've not provided me with a complete transcript. So there were some parts that were cut out, but be assured that if anything was cut out, it was me getting a good point in. At one point in the interview, I said to them, I'm here to talk about the carnivore diet, and all I'm doing is getting attacked. And they were like, you're not getting attacked. So I don't know if that's in any of the clips, but yeah. I definitely said that at one point during the interview. They were like, you need to show us why the carnivore diet is safe. And I said, that's what I'm here to do. But all that's happening is I'm getting attacked and vilified, and this isn't even a fair fight. And so they probably cut that out. But I definitely said that at one point in the interview.
Paul Saladino, MD. I know you got, what is it, carnivoremd.com? What's your website called?
Carnivoremd.com, my man. I got a book coming out. So the book is The Carnivore Code. We're going to have a link on Amazon this week. It's coming out on February 25th. People will be able to pre-order the ebook. I am recording an audio book this week, so the audio book is going to be out real soon. The print copy is going to be available February 25th. It's 300 pages. I have it in my hand. You can see the Carnivore Code.
Congrats, man.
It's got 650 references.
Wait, why are you putting references in, man? What are you doing that for? You don't need to do that. Go on the doctors and yell and scream and wave your arms around and spit in people's face.
Yeah, it's dense, but I wanted to make it readable. I tried to put in lots of pictures, and there's graphics, and so all kinds of good stuff, graphics and references, and now you can see my face on the cover. And so check out the Carnivore Code. You can go to thecarnivorecodebook.com for details. In a couple of days, that link will take you straight to Amazon. My website is Carnivore MD. I have my own podcast, which is Fundamental Health. I now have a shirt. Stay radical. This is the Paul Saladino shirt. I'm going to get you one, Tristan.
There you go. I love the 80s.
Order that on my website. On the back, it says, you'll like this. Do you know what it says on the back, Tristan?
I'm trying to think of a catchphrase that somebody said today. I don't know. I have no idea what to say on the back.
It says, "Me, play, love."
There you go.
Me, play, love. So I thought that would be cool because it's about being kind to other humans. Yeah. It's about playing outside in the wilderness, and it's about eating lots of animals. That's a formula for success. So me, play, love, stay radical, as you guys know, is my hashtag. You can get the shirt on my website if you want to support me and rep the tribe.